Welcome on board. I'm George, and today we're on our way to take our first look at a boat that's come up for sale. A boat that's a bit of a unicorn. I really wasn't expecting to ever see one, much less have the opportunity to buy one. 1973, Prout Brothers, Ranger, and one of the very rare ones that was made as a 31 foot. And the owner has her out on the hard for me to get an inspection on it. And if she's okay, we're buying. Let's go see. That's me, sitting on top of the new boat. After a long hard day of inspecting every inch from top to bottom, the deal was done and I became the proud owner of a 1973 Prout Ranger 31 foot catamaran. And there's so much work to be done to bring her back to her former glory. But we started into it. And when I say we, that meant my son was involved. He got dragged in, volunteered, and the painting and the scrubbing began during the summer to try and get her to be cosmetically correct and with the intentions to refit the interior across the winter months. At this point, the boat didn't even have a name. The chap that I had bought it from had intended to name it Time and Tide. And somehow that didn't seem to fit. So we worked on the basis that eventually we would either find out the boat's original name or a suitable name would become apparent in its own time. We had started out with the idea of we would paint her grey and white to be fresh, and then my son found part of the original colour, which was this turquoise blue, and we decided to go with that. I knew it would be a lot of work, but I don't think I anticipated exactly how much time would be absorbed. Even the painting of the decks and doing the turquoise blue. There was so much. The more you paint, the more you realize there's still so much left to go. Every waking hour, away from work, getting down to work on the boat, turned into long nights and relaxing, having something to eat and heading home in the small hours of the morning. So eventually we found a little bit of history about the boat. And it turns out this one has done the French canals 6 or 7 times in its lifetime into the Med. But we still weren't able to find out the original name. Until we came up with the name of our own. So folks, finally you get to meet Storm Dancer. And you can hit like and subscribe to help the channel grow as we follow the journey of taking Storm Dancer from being a tired old boat into being a comfortable cruiser on a budget. There are a lot of channels out there where you see many experts doing wonderful things, but I'm coming in from a slightly different angle as a former electromechanical engineer. And I don't intend to spend an absolute fortune on making Storm Dancer into a luxury yacht. Instead, the goal is to make Storm Dancer be a practical cruising boat for humble expenditure, give it a new lease of life, and enjoy it. Although we've stuck to the original colour, we're not trying to keep the boat completely original. In this day and age, a few upgrades go a long way. A modern catamaran comes with sugar scoops and steps at the back. The Ranger certainly didn't have anything like that. One of the visions I have for the boat is being able to sail into shallow, warm waters and to be able to swim off the sides and get back on board easily. These triple telescopic swim ladders achieve that. So after much debate between my son and I, we decided that the best possible course of action was to brighten up the interior, have a nautical theme, but not spend an awful lot of money on anything fancy. So we took the doors off from the two archways within the bulkhead, brought them home here to the workshop with heavy grit, sanded back to the marine ply, and finished it off for varnish. We kept the original brightwork, little door catches. Now, we don't know if they were original or not, but they're historical. They've been with the boat for a long, long time. So the idea was if we sand these doors back, and they are just marine ply, smooth them out, several coats of varnish, we would start to get a certain vibe, a certain feel, a certain essence of how we wanted the interior to turn out. So the little fittings that held the doors closed and the hinges, running them through the wire wheel to get the paint off, cleaning them up, bringing them back to how they were originally, and reinstalled them. During this time, my son came up with an idea that these doors could be done with portholes, and rather than spend a fortune on new portholes that are for interior only, mostly decorative, we went on to Thingiverse, the 3D repository online, and downloaded these models to print out in the 3D printer using PETG, which now gives us varnished doors with working but interior only portholes, mainly for cosmetic purposes. And this started setting the scene for the interior refit. And like most of you who are watching this channel, I also have been watching the progress of many other channels, including Sailing Good, Bad and Ugly, where they made a big effort to relaminate their interior bulkheads with sheet. We all saw how awkward that was. So I came up with this idea, that instead of buying a full sheet of laminate for so many intricate cuts, was to buy rolls of laminate, edge finish, for kitchen worktops. So I bought the 50mm strip of oak and the 15mm strips of mahogany. I started cutting them to size, and as you can see here, just by taking my time, cutting the strips to length, gluing them to the original bulkhead, we're starting to get a very, very nautical looking theme going on here for very, very little expenditure. And on the Ranger, when you step in through the cockpit door into the cabin, it's a very small space in the dining salon. So we used standard domestic flooring, hardwood flooring, or at least what's referred to as hardwood flooring. It's really MDF. Working on the basis that it's easy to replace and It just brightens the look of the boat. So no great expenditure, just a little bit of time and effort with the jigsaw. And then we ripped an old panel from a fence into strips and took the rider along it with a chamfer bit to create, as you can see that I'm sanding here, coving for along the top of the bulkhead where it meets the roof. This is not expensive wood. This is just recycled fencing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would say, though, you should be using hardwood or teak or walnut or... Being realistic, it's the interior of a boat. It's not somewhere that's going to be particularly wet. Or to put that in context, if it gets wet enough for to cause a problem for these strips of wood, we have bigger problems. By now we had worked on the boat all summer and moved into September. Things were starting to come together. We finally got the gas burner installed into the galley, the Chinese cab heater, the front cabin lined, and a bed made up. So the opportunity to spend the first ever night on board had come about, and as the sun went down, the atmosphere was absolutely beautiful, water lapping against the hulls. Crawling into bed for the first time on board, the realization I had done it. I had bought a 31-foot catamaran and made it into a comfortable, cozy place to be able to stay, with the addition of a few tea lights and this ornamental feature that had been brought back from a holiday in Crete. That first night on board turned into a glorious morning. Finally having the double burner gas available to put the coffee on board and then start into the day. I'm trying to figure out how to fit the carpet tiles to the ceiling of the boat. And then there was sanding. So much sanding. The carpet tiles, though, proved to be very, very successful. It was either fair and skimmed the entire interior of the boat. The carpet tiles, we hoped, would form a layer of insulation for winter and a little bit of noise deadening. And it also turns out they keep the boat cool during the summer months. Next on the list was the electrics. The electrics are in a mess. There have been so many people have clearly been in that system adding cables for various accessories over the years that I've decided the whole lot needs to be torn out. And in a later episode, I will be stripping every wire, every cable on the boat out completely and starting from scratch. So for those of you who have a boat of your own and are a little bit wary of the electrics, I will be creating a loom from scratch with a step-by-step walkthrough on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. As the year continued, we discovered that some things didn't work out so well. For example, the blinds that I had fitted for the cabin were PVC, and they didn't fare well with the heat coming in through the port lights. And the final decision was to remove them entirely and replace them with curtains and blinds, which would be the more traditional route. And then there was more sanding. I cannot begin to explain just exactly how much sanding is involved in restoring an older boat. It's seemingly endless, but it's worth it. And at this stage, I started thinking in terms of coming into December and the winter months of were there things that I could do at home in the workshop that would benefit the boat at a later time? Somewhere along the way, the idea of investing in a small CNC machine came about. And when I say small, a 30 centimeter by 180 carving bed, and something of an adventure in learning how to set it up and work with it, with many mishaps. But to be able to take an old piece of plywood and carve it into something more interesting, after being trimmed, sanded, varnished, split in two and mounted to the inner doors, it became this. And across the winter months, although I didn't film much, quite a bit more got done, such as upholstering the seating and creating 2 strips of wood with downlighters for overhead on the dining table. And the addition of this DC motor control, which needs a panel obviously for it, to be able to dim the interior lights and switch them on and off from directly overhead. And with that proof of concept established, the decision now is to either 3D print a diffuser or create a switch panel. We'll see how that goes. Then as we got into winter, the weather was horrible. Working on the boat was less than pleasant. So it was time to do a little bit of online shopping. 2 helm seats. The Prout didn't come with helm seats. It was standing sailing only. But because my intentions is to make it a comfortable cruising boat, things like the helm seats and these triple step telescopic boarding ladders and my little stainless steel barbecue go a long way to making a difference. It's been a long year with a lot of work that's gone in so far. And still a lot to be done. In this shot between the 2 rear hulls, you can see the Z-leg gearbox and this cover over a 1.6 BMC engine that the previous owner had considered to be a solution for propulsion on board. I'm not so convinced. It seems to me that it has no advantages. It's heavy, it's of an unknown origin, and in a later episode I'll be removing the Z-leg, the gearbox, this doghouse and the BMC engine. And from where I'm standing in this shot, working on the Bowden for the steering helm, which is naturally seized up, I'm quite stubborn about it. The original Prout transom would have been about 2 foot back from where I'm standing. And I think it'll be my preference to put the transom for an outboard, a modern 4-stroke, with electronic controls and maybe 6 amp power outlet, and get rid of all of that. And I know I'm taking on quite the challenge, because that engine's going to be quite heavy and difficult to move. But I don't really want to be offshore with a 1.6 BMC engine that's exposed as much as that one is. But all told, it's been quite the adventure across the year. I still have the hulls to paint and the white work to do. And you can see I have the solar panel at the moment above the spray dodger. The intention is to mount davits on the back of the boat for the inflatable and move the solar panel to the back. And little things like this stainless steel light, which is originally an outdoor mains light, converted to LED, as you can see, temporarily connected up to see if if I like them. The boat just keeps evolving. But all things considered, to look back on where the boat started here, when I first got it with this whitewashed marine ply and bare fiberglass interior, through to where it is now from a year of working at it, there's quite the difference. and it's been quite the journey. And yet, the journeys of Storm Dancer are only beginning. So, those of you who have watched this far, thank you for being here. And if you'd like to hit subscribe, notify, like, and help the channel grow, I'd very much appreciate it. Until next time, thank you.